So, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining the Fall Pacific Maximo User Group webinar. This user group is an all-inclusive industry group that encompasses the Pacific region and welcomes all with the goal of connecting Maximo end users with your Maximo peers. If you've not done so already, please join the PackMug LinkedIn homepage and the IBM IoT PackMug community homepage to stay informed on upcoming events. In addition, check out the packmug.org website for presentations and recordings from past events, sponsorship opportunities, and to stay connected with fellow MUG members. Special thanks to our presenters, event sponsors, and steering committee members to make these ongoing Maximo User Group meetings possible. Today's meeting sponsors include JFC and Associates, Prometheus Group, EI, Crory and Associates, and ZPro Solutions. We've got a jam-packed agenda with a great keynote, end-user presentations lined up. The theme for this fall's meeting is around master data. So we're honored to have our keynote speaker Michael Jordan, professional engineer and vice president of EAM practices with Utopia Global, to kick off today's webinar with a keynote on master data. Mike Jordan is a professional engineer with more than 30 years of experience in systems engineering and program management, associated with automation systems in asset-intensive industries. Through extensive engagements with industry-leading engineering, procurement, and construction companies, as well as plant owner-operators, Mr. Jordan has developed an interesting perspective on the challenges faced in asset lifecycle information management. In addition, we've got a great presentation by Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit titled Demystifying Job Plans, Understanding and Improving Job Plans to Reduce Maintenance Costs by T. Leanne Tanner and Brian Cowley. We're also excited to have Marianne Wood with Chelan County Public Utilities Districts lead a discussion group around planning and scheduling for success. This is an open forum and your participation is welcome. Closing out today's webinar, we've got Michael Nutt with GFC and Associates leading a discussion group around a hot topic within the end user community, mobile and mobile inspections supporting digital transformation. If you have any questions during the presentations, please use the chat feature and we'll address your questions at the end of each presentation. Our discussion groups will be interactive, so please raise your hand and we will open your mic, or you're welcome to chat with your questions. If you don't want to open your mic up, that's fine too. With that, let's get started, and I'll turn it over to Michael Jordan, our keynote speaker for today's PackMug webinar. Mike, it is all yours. Go. Mike Jordan, here you are. Okay. You should be good. You should be good to go, Mike.
All right.
Hopefully.
Are you seeing PowerPoint?
Hey, there it is. Look at there.
Just like we knew what we're doing.
It wouldn't be right just to not start off with a technical difficulty, right?
No, where's the logo come? So I appreciate
that, Mr. Michael Jordan.
I love it. I appreciate your time today. We're going to talk a bit about master data and digital transformations. Frankly, it's often an overlooked topic as organizations contemplate all the cool stuff, Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, collaboration among suppliers and vendors. It's so enticing, but quite often we find that data is the key element, the thing that really gets us from where we are to where we want to be. Organizations like KPMG and Gartner's Harvard Business Group have surveyed organizations just like you, and they found that the concerns are real. Quite often, organizations have this sneaking suspicion that the data could, in fact, be the gating factor on their ability to deploy next generation technologies. And in fact, they're right. Data that you don't trust, arguably, isn't data. If you look at surveys like SAP has an organization called Value Engineering that also benchmarks organizations just like you, and found that the differences are measurable. Organizations, particularly asset-intensive organizations, have measurable differences in the things that matter: return on assets, annual service and maintenance cost, unplanned downtimes, as you look at people who are well thought through in their asset master data strategies versus those that have just evolved. When you look at the business impact, they are significant. As you look at all the benefits of Internet of Things, we've all seen the stories. A lot of us have at least put a toe in it to test it out and see how it works. It begins in the familiar place with a motor failing. Now we've got that motor instrumented, so we can sense relevant measures. We can sense vibration, we can sense temperature, we can sense flow rates, we can sense the things that matter so that we detect abnormalities early in the game. We've got analytics that will say something's not right. Let's take a look. Let's decide what we need to do and get to the head of the curve. When it's linked to maintenance planning can say, all right, let's get on it. Then the data kicks in. But I didn't know it was one of those motors. I thought it's one of these motors. So maintenance tries hard. They send the maintenance guy out, maybe with the wrong spare parts, maybe with the wrong task list. Supply chain gives them the wrong additional information. Maintenance guy gets there all right, except he gets there with the wrong stuff. Some of our customers call this first-time call resolution. What's the likelihood if you have a failure or anticipated failure in a remote location that you can put the right guy in the right truck with the right tools and the right information and the right spares in the first go? If you had first-time call resolution, you'd be set. But for lack of that, you spent the money on IoT, but it didn't quite work as advertised. With the right information, we get to the maintenance planner making right decisions with right information and right information. So it's close, but this is the difference. Your next generation technology works or it doesn't work. And we all have those kind of feelings in our gut that maybe things aren't right. But fortunately, there are things we can do now before you get full on into the critical path of next generation automation. There are things you can do today that allow you to prepare for digital transformations. And in this short time, we can talk about three of those. One is assess your data quality. And there are ways to do this objectively. Don't just kind of say, well, it's kind of okay, good enough. Let's take a look. It's quite possible today to pull very large samples, ideally all of your maintenance data, and benchmark such that we can compare it against industry benchmarks for things like consistency, conformity, completeness, and give you a real sense of what do you have, what's missing, what are the business impacts, how do you compare to business standards, such that it's not subjective. We can say, here's where you have good stuff, here's where you have bad stuff, here are the holes, here are the likely business impacts of those holes. You can do this ahead of the curve. You can do this today such that we can help. Let's benchmark your data. Let's take a look at what industry best practices are. How do you compare against good enough? That's a place to start. Low cost, low obligation. Let's take a look today and get ahead of the game. Another area is to look at the business impact. I mentioned earlier that organizations have benchmarked companies like you. SAP did that with a large organization called Value Engineering. We collaborated with Accenture to build similar benchmarks such that we can start with a look at your data and then look at the publicly available information about your organization and give a good sense of what the business impact is. And it's several fold. Old maintenance guys have always said, wouldn't it be nice if our data were perfect? Well, we're beyond that now. We can benchmark it, we can measure it, and the measures come in several folds. If you look at the top left corner, there was a survey done by
Michael, sorry to interrupt, but we're not seeing your screen any longer.
So close.
So close. There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
Beautiful.
You're back.
Okay. So, so looking at the business impact, there was a survey done by EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute. They looked first at utilities, and then the findings were so interesting. The survey was broadened to all asset-intensive industries. Excuse me. What EPRI found is that on average, maintenance workers are only doing productive maintenance work 40% of the time. The chunk of time that's bigger than that's the time they spend looking for parts and information to do their job. So increasing that maintenance wrench time, as they call it, from 40% up is where we can begin. Operational efficiency, top right, is the next measure. That can be called asset availability. It follows from the first. If it takes longer to fix stuff, your mean time to repair goes up, asset availability goes down. MRO supply chain cost on the left. This can be the largest single area of savings. The way it comes about is if you don't have master data that crisply ties an equipment with a material list, with a list of spares, you can retire an asset in the field and have no good way to know that this whole shelf of spare parts is now obsolete inventory. We've had organizations justify their entire digital transformation by eliminating obsolete inventory. EH&S risk it's harder to quantify, but if you really look at any incident, look across industries at incidents where things were damaged, people were hurt, drill in at some level of detail, you almost always find good-hearted, hardworking people making decisions on bad information. Auditability, lower and left, can be regulatory compliance in some industries, some parts of the world, but regardless of regulation, it's just common sense to not be satisfied to say, I've got stuff in Maximo. What you want to be able to do is touch any asset, look at the data and say, how do I know this is right? And have an audit trail that says this data came from this engineering drawing, and I know it's the latest version. It came from this subject matter expert sign off, this best practice business rule. Finally, operational excellence. This is all the cool stuff. This is IoT, reliability centered maintenance, risk-based inspection. All of these things are only really possible when you can have a level of confidence that says the asset that I think is there is the one that's there. As I said, benchmarks have been built out for organizations just like you that can start with an assessment of your data quality, then look at publicly available information and give you a fairly good estimate. What's the ROI on improving my master data? This gives you a way to move beyond, wouldn't it be nice, to justifying an engagement that says, let's get the data right on the front end of next generation automation. And finally, the third recommendation is to develop a data foundation. One of the reasons that we get to a place where our data is not perfect is because our assets change on a daily basis. Our assets change from planned maintenance, unplanned maintenance, shutdowns, turnarounds, capital projects. And as our assets change, our master data must change as well. So I would argue it makes no sense to put all the energy into getting your master data right if you don't build the plan that says, I'm going to keep it right. So a data governance framework is a plan, first and foremost. Who owns your master data? Who are your data stewards? Who has privilege to see it, privilege to change it? Who do I share that? Who else uses it such that every time I change something, I share it with all the stakeholders? This is a plan. What's a data governance strategy that allows you to say, I will deploy the business practices that will keep my data right once I make these movements to get the data right? So there, in summary, is a quick start. Before you go spend the money, before you go deploy the next generation automation, let's take a look at your data. Let's assess the quality of your data. Let's look at the business impact. If I have data like this, what's the likelihood that the cool new thing's going to work? And then let's take a look at how you're going to keep it right. Should you choose to move forward and put your data in order, what do I need to do regarding business processes that will keep my data up to date? So there is just a way to start thinking about data and thinking most importantly about, let's not skip the step of data quality as you go step into this next generation digital transformations that we're all moving to stay competitive. So with that, I'll open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Michael. Questions out there around master data in supporting digital transformation? And Richard, if you would like to help monitor the chat window, that'd be awesome.
No problem, will do.
So Michael, I actually have one. So what's the most common question you get around master data transformation, and you know, why is it so critical, let's say during an upgrade or prior to an upgrade?
The questions we hear most are the common sense questions. As we talk to organizations, Maximo users, quite often we're talking to industry leaders, to thought leaders, and they start out with, we're us, and we've made it okay until now. So what's changed? If we've made it to here right now with the data that you've already told me is imperfect, we must be okay. Well, it's quite logical. The challenge, of course, is several-fold. One is, so how is it you're doing okay? Quite often the answer is you're doing your maintenance work with guys that have hair the color of mine, and they've been there for 30 years and they just know how to do stuff. So if something breaks, I really know how to fix it. If the data is not right, it's obviously not right. I know what to do anyway. A couple of things are happening. We're looking at retiring and moving to Mexico. So as the workforce gets younger, the systems have to get smarter. Another thing that's happening is as we move into digital transformations and integrate systems and look across systems, the data that was once obviously wrong is now subtly wrong, which is not an improvement. So getting the data, there's more requirements of data, and those are the changes that have deeper demands of data. So what once was okay just isn't.
Yeah. You know, one of my past lives, I was inventory program engineer for a large power company. And when I stepped into that position, there was so many acquisitions on power plants across the country and other nations. And one of the things they had done, and this is back in the Maximo 4.0 days, right? But they opened up the inventory item master so anybody could create an item, right? And so we ended up having, 80,000+ items in the inventory master. And of those 80,000 items, 70,000 were duplicates. So cleaning your master data is really important. And one of the things I used to do when I was talking about the different maintenance managers and people that could create an item in their item master is I'd take a quarter and I'd flip it and I'd throw it in the middle of the table around a table full of maintenance managers and said, put a description into Maximo in your item master for the quarter. And you'd be surprised how many different ways that could be entered into the item master. So I think clean data prior to an upgrade or whatever is really critical for any organization. And that's just, inventory item master as an example. So do we have any other chat questions out there?
I think there's one from Michael Guns.
Okay.
Are there any formats that you might suggest to display your data sources?
Yes, good question. Good question. And fortunately, there are a lot of smart guys that have looked at this question for some time. So it's not subjective. ISO 14224 has evolved to become that standard. That began in the oil and gas industry and is now broadened to all asset intensive industries. It allows you to define master data beginning at the hierarchy. Here's the way to build a hierarchy for all the assets in your organization. Then within that, there are templates for every class of equipment that you have, such that you can describe every piece of equipment independent of manufacturer model number, so that you can say, here is a description of a centrifugal pump, the characteristics, and it's not so much if you just look at the essentials. Here's how to describe a centrifugal pump, such that you can search across inventories, across fields. You can find functional equivalents, you can find like-kind replacements. In the spare parts arena, UNSPSC has evolved to be that comparable standard for spares. So fortunately, unfortunately, you don't have to make it up or think, oh, that's kind of good enough. The standards come to the rescue.
Excellent.
Folks, we'll share these slides through PackMug. So you're welcome to the slides, and my contact information is on the front. So if you come up with another question later, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to collaborate. I certainly appreciate your time today.
Thanks for the keynote, Mike. It was a great keynote and a lot of good information around master data. So with that, staying on track, we do have Mr. Michael Nutt with GFC and Associates is going to do a sponsor spotlight, and then we will move into our next presentation by Mr. Michael Guns with the University of Delaware. So Michael Nutt, I will turn it over to you.
And I think you sent me. So can you see my screen?
You can.
Excellent. So just a quick spotlight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PackMug, our hopefully last virtual PackMug. So my name is Michael Nutt. I'm the Director of Business Development at JFC and Associates. And just a little bit about who we are. And this was a quote that we got from actually a couple of customers. So we thought it was kind of interesting to maybe include that in our presentation, that they considered us innovative thought leaders within the EAM space. So we are highly focused on Maximo. But within particular industries, we have a bit more domain knowledge and experience, and that's within public infrastructure, both at state and local levels, as well as the federal levels from a facility standpoint, and roads in transit, and also focusing on higher education. We work with a lot of universities out there. JFC has been working with Maximo since 2001 when it was MRO software. But we have been a business partner ever since the acquisition of Maximo from IBM in 2006. Based on that experience, we were recognized at the previous Maximo World in 2019 with an award for the best overall asset performance management program. And that was actually with one of our state customers. And with our team together, we've got over 100 years of functional and technical expertise. So lots of knowledge there. So our primary focus is really on the people in the process and how best to leverage the technology that is right for the issues that need to be solved. But primarily, we do focus on what the impact is to the organization, the people within the organization, and how to best manage the process for what they want to achieve, and then finding the right technology solution to accomplish that. So some of the services that we provide in that regard, we probably have more of a focus on the holistic enterprise asset management and how to optimize those systems. Like I said, Maximo is our primary application that we do implement, but there are others that we're involved with. So taking that kind of holistic approach is what we do best. And we do everything that is related to Maximo, from initial implementations, upgrades, and enhancements. And we do that both on-premise, and we work with IBM and other cloud hosting providers like Progitech, Cent, in order to provide that off-site cloud environment that really helps organizations to, I guess, better manage their environments through this through that type of delivery. Like I said, we've got a number of folks that are very technically inclined, so we've integrated to just about everything out there, integrated Maximo to multiple types of systems out there, and enhanced the operation of Maximo. I come from a mobile background, working with a company you may be familiar with, Data Splice. Worked there for about 8 years before going back into the general Maximo realm. JFC was one of the early adopters of mobility, and we continue to support customers in evaluating the efficacy of how they're deploying mobile and coming up with solutions to enhance that and expand it within the organization. And one area that we've spent a lot of time, JFC has spent a lot of time developing within the IoT space. So we have a number of customers that we've deployed sensors, gateways to monitor in real time what's going on within the organization. And that could be airflow in HVAC ducts, it could be moisture in MEP rooms. It really is an ever-expanding world with regards to the monitor side of what we do. So pretty excited with some of the advances that have occurred around IoT in the last few years. With the experience that JFC has had, JFC has created a number of applications to address specific issues. Some of these may be a little outdated because Maximo has also evolved and incorporated some of these technologies into the core product, but these are just a few that we still have available and that we still support at a number of client sites. But like I was mentioning, with the IoT space, the product that we have developed is kind of an edge platform that connects IBM Maximo to those sensors and gateways that are out in the field. So we've utilized a number of OT solutions to comprise that solution. It is built on Microsoft Azure, storing that data, connecting that data with Maximo. We work with a number of hardware vendors. Monit is just one of them. And we also work with a few software vendors to help enhance that product offering. Yanzi is one from a data synchronization standpoint. And Matterport is a new partnership that we've just launched. You'll probably be seeing a lot more about that, and they provide a 3D visualization of your organization. And we've built an integration between Matterport and Maximo to identify those in your 3D space. So again, pretty excited about that. A little bit about our experience. Here's just a few, the general logo. although we have had a focus on higher ed and public infrastructure and transit, we have worked in a number of industries, and those are just a few that are listed there. And if you have a need to ask a question, here's my contact information. So there you go.
Excellent.
And
Thank you, Michael.
thank you for allowing us to sponsor. And we look forward to bigger and better things from the PACMUC.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
So our next presentation, University of Delaware, Mr. Michael Gunn's work execution through planning and scheduling. So developing a planned approach to maintenance takes some forethought and planning of its own. Creating specific workflows defined around your business practices will help implement a process to align a more planned strategy. Using your CMMS system and a defined planned maintenance approach will find that elusive time commodity that we all search for. So, Michael, I will turn it over to you.
How's everybody doing? Scott, I'm clicking on the share screen, but it's not coming up.
Let's see. Yeah, you should be presenter right now.
If you have multiple screens, check one of your other screens, because it seems like the messages don't always stay on the screen you're on.
There you go. You're up now, Michael.
All right. So my name is Michael Guns. I am the Associate Director for Maintenance and Operations at the University of Delaware. We put into the Maximo World 2021 awards with Prometheus Group for Best Work Execution, Management, and Implementation. So this is just kind of like an overview of how that developed, how we stepped in to try to get that award and eventually get it, everything along with it, and how we developed our flows, our processes, and some of the the things that helped us out with that. So from the start, we got a new director for maintenance and operations. His name was Paul Dickinson. He showed up in 2015. With that, he kind of helped us develop a missions and vision statement and how we were going to progress in the maintenance and operations arena, and how we needed to give our end users some effectiveness and how we did maintenance and operations. So with that, he and the group together developed to maintain safe, reliable, and efficient facilities and continuously improve asset reliability and service performance through applied innovation, technology, and process management. Somebody in the end user group asked me one time, what does that all mean? It just means that we are gearing towards giving the end users the best possible outcome for them to perform at their best. So I think that's a pretty good observation of the whole thing, and it also gives them a better understanding as to what that really means. So some key factors for our initial development of all this was our stakeholder interaction. Some of that we had to find out, like, who our stakeholders were, and with that being said, it's our end users. So the deans, the students, the faculty and staff, our executive leadership, and ourselves to understand them and understand how things are going to be going for them a little bit better. We had to understand how it was going to affect them, what we were going to provide with them as far as like outages, repair needs, notifications, and what our program would actually mean to them. with the education of our students, it's very important that we keep the classrooms and the laboratory spaces and any of the meeting spaces running optimally, and the assets behind them running optimally, so that we can give them the best possible outcome for their education. So some of the components that we developed as we were looking at this and talking with our end users and talking with our group as a whole, we needed to really create a cradle to grave style workflow. So how our work actually came in, how we were going to disperse it amongst our groups, and a practical and concise way of developing that for our asset management purposes as well, to look at how we were going to best serve those assets through PM, preventive maintenance, or predictive maintenance measures going forward. We also had to develop some cohesion between all the shops, plan and schedule our work, identify where the hurdles were that needed to be looked at for some of the change management or the continuous learning opportunities we were going to have, so that they understood these flows and made them work for their best practices. So with that, we kind of went through and developed an overarching theme. So the picture here is kind of depicts our overall work management as an expansion view, and we kind of subdivided it into a couple of groups, so that as we went through our overall work execution and all the flows that were associated with it, each one of these dotted lines has a subflow to it that was developed, so that we knew basically from point A to point B how all this went. So the overarching processes include those flows to give our end users and everybody who's associated with maintenance and operations an idea of how a work order comes in, how it goes through the processes of being input into Maximo, how it goes through our planning and scheduling stages, how our technicians work through that, and then how it's closed out at the end of all of that process. So in order to do that properly, we had to also develop our planning and scheduling group. We initially started through Maximo Assignment Manager, and I don't know if any of you have used it, but it's really not intuitive. It helps for aligning some stuff, but to understand like how your manpower is actually allocated, without the color coding, you wouldn't really get a good understanding of it. So we progressed to Acquire with Prometheus later on, and it focused it on our workflows to identify some of those strategies that we would need. And it gives us a better outcome to view how our schedule is across the board for all the shops, and or how we can best help the end users by giving them some times and dates on when we were targeting the work. And outputting that to them is made some great strides for us to develop, service level agreements with them later on, which we're actually working towards now, so that they get a better view on how we can best serve them, and then their expectations of us in the meantime. So with that, we really had to focus in on our assets as well. So during this process, we developed an asset input sheet. Originally, we had it based on paper, and a lot of the things that we did with it to go with the flows were to get this to a better outcome, to actually input into Maximo any of the assets that were coming up for our renovation projects, our overall capital projects, and if we just changed out equipment, pumps, valves, generators, etc. So originally, when we began this process, we had about 5,230 total and unverified, mind you, assets within our portfolio at that time. As of today, and when we did this original presentation, it was at 9,654. We're up over 10,000 right now with some of the buildings that we've come online, and with this sheet, we actually have it so that it's automated enough that if you input the particular asset that you're looking for, it will populate the particular standards and classification specifications that we need to input into Maximo, so that we can do ordering or get some of the manufacturer guidelines on how to best serve that equipment. Since then, we've had like a 40% increase in the reporting activity, and our contractors are using it more often when we do the development of our projects. So now they know what to look for, and it's better helped our standards so that we can get the right assets for the right things that we need. To help all of this, we created a documentation and change control. This is done through Smartsheet. It actually has workflows associated with it so that there's an approval step that goes through. But each and every change that we do in either Maximo, with our work plans, our job plans, our safety plans, our assets, or anything that has to do with personnel, it goes through this sheet so that we can keep track of the things that we do within Maximo or within our work execution, so that we can make better strides and do that continuous learning that we were talking about earlier with our end users or our technicians or even our executive leadership. I'm not sure if you guys have the same problems that I do, but our executive leadership really doesn't kind of get the idea behind maintenance and why it's so important. The analogy that we use, respectfully of course, is that they try to work on their car when they're driving it. So, you know, you're driving down the road and you get a flat tire, you can't really take the tire off while you're driving it. So we're trying to get them to understand that by using these tools to help us out with that. And along with some of the reporting structures that we've developed. And this kind of gets into the data analytics, as Michael was talking about earlier, and some of the things that we've produced to help our cause out. Originally, we started out with just getting manually pulling some of the SQL queries out of Maximo. We used Excel, and we developed those into better reporting structures to help out with our ClickSense implementation. We have since had to draw back off of that because our BI person actually found another job somewhere else. So we're kind of getting into back into what we really need to by using the Excel-based reports, a couple of them that I'll show you here in a second. But they draw from Maximo, our accounting software, our PeopleSoft software that does our space management and some of the other personnel things that we need to do. And it gives us some ad hoc reporting that we can do some strategic decision making on. Those are working towards our benefit because they're still in place and we can use them. And we've really used them to try and make some better decisions for our executives to understand, like cost savings, and particularly, and unfortunately, with COVID. The coronavirus really impacted us greatly and increased the need for us to schedule and plan our work a little bit better. With that, it was so that we could look at the buildings that we had to maybe do some energy management with, or identify ways to cut costs by putting down set points, etc. With that, we needed to plan and schedule our work better by using the Prometheus brand and Acquire to lay our guys out and ladies out so that we could get the work done appropriately and give our leadership some idea of like the buildings that we were touring, how many of them we actually got to tour versus the ones that we didn't have to tour. The number of hours that were associated with that and the cost behind it, so that they could see if we needed to use overtime, could we save money by spreading out the shifts across, a Sunday to Saturday instead of Monday through Friday. That was really pivotal for us to kind of split our workforce to different shifts so that we had the coverage that we needed to support looking at the buildings at that time. And we basically spurred that into increasing the need for our scheduling during our regular times, now that we're kind of back to a new social norm. And now we have what we call a schedule achievement report. We wanted to call it schedule achievement because as you kind of feel compliance is really like kind of a negative term versus, you need to comply, you need to comply. And one of the funny sayings that came out of that was, we're not the Borg. We don't want you to comply. We want you to achieve your schedule. So with that, we created this so that we could look from week to week and how we were doing. And this report is actually designed around the fact that we can look at things in the rear view mirror. So I can look back to 2020 and I can see, with COVID, how it affected us. But I can also look back to 2018 or 2017, and I can see where we were at that point in time and where we are now. We've consistently improved this through, just reviews on what we were doing. We've started optimizing our PM program by going in and checking the hours. We're frequency-based right now and not meter-based, where we want to get to that model so that we can be more proactive. But with that being said, we started judging and looking at a 3-year average of what it really took for those mechanics to do that work, and we started adjusting the hours to fit that and looking at manufacturer recommendations to help with that as well. It's really helped us to improve and find that all precious commodity of time. If anything happens around what we do from day to day, time is our most valuable commodity. And I tell people that every day, that if there's a way for us to find the time and make things more efficient and effective, we'll find it. This was one of those great things that we did. So the results of all of this, obviously we got the award, which was a great thing. We upgraded our work execution management so that we were more efficient and effective. We redesigned a lot and improved on the workflows and the change management around our facilities, and who actually thought about what was going on and how those things were affecting the overall day-to-day operations of the university. Planning and scheduling was a huge part of it. It was something that really kind of vetted us into a different avenue of thinking and trying to enhance our money savings and budgets. And then we ended up allowing ourselves to look at data a little bit differently to make sure that it does have that integrity, and we're putting the right things in place, and the data going in was as good as the data coming out. Using our reports vetted our other ClickSense reports or dashboards to make them robust and great. So it was really a key pivotal point by adding the work execution management and the scheduling and planning to make it a whole program and try to get people to understand it a little bit better. So that being said, if at any time anybody has any questions, hopefully these slides go out and the contact information will be on there. I do enjoy giving out information as I can. It's a very good part of how you can kind of get things together and manage things. So if you need any information, I'm more than happy to give it out.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. And as you mentioned, data integrity is key. So again, around master data theme, I think that fits very well. And congratulations on your Maximo award this year.
Yeah, thanks. And you too.
Do we have any chat questions out there? Anybody, you can either raise your hand or you can use the chat window. If not, we will go into our next. All right. Well, thanks again, Michael. And again, if you have any afterthoughts, feel free to send an email to myself or any of the other committee members, and we will get that message out to Michael and answer any of your questions appropriately.
I think
So
we have a question.
Oh, we do. Okay, go ahead.
Joe Davis has a question.
Hey, Joe.
Let's unmute him. You
Okay,
should
now
be
I'm
unmuted.
unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, Joe.
Sure.
How you been?
Oh, thank you very much. Not
Don't ask. Okay.
busy. The question over to Michael on your planning department. Different organizations like to in my 30-year career, different locations always take the classification of a maintenance planner, and at some point they would sit there and devise them as, let's say, a group of individuals who are trade oriented. In other words, they were tradespeople who were proficient at a specific trade, and then they actually do the planning for a particular trade. Other agencies might do it where a maintenance planner might have a territory. They take the territory, work with the trades to do the work in a particular territory, facility, things of that nature. Others actually I've seen other agencies consider a maintenance planner almost what I would call more of a project person, where the project person will actually go out and watch contractors do work, track the work of contractors, not really the in-house. And then you'll know that there are certain groups that actually have planners that do more asset management, and they do less field work and more computer work. For your organization, how would you consider your maintenance planner?
For us, it's a combination of two things. So we have our managers actually help out with the planning of the work, and we have what's called a senior mechanic. So we have a unionized technician force, and our planner is actually a planner / scheduler, because unfortunately we can't, get everything individualized like we'd like to. So our planner and scheduler holds a scheduling meeting with the manager every week, and we look at the overall jobs that need to be taken a look at. And then the optimal way for us would be to have the planner go out with the manager and look at that job, and we're starting to get into that process now. They would go take a look at the 5 jobs or 6 jobs or whatever that comes up, get a material list, get an idea of what it's going to take, identify if they need drawings, that kind of thing, and they would put it all together in a package for them, for the technician to go out and look at it and perform the work. Our planners also do the scheduling, lay out the schedules and the PMs, and again, unfortunately, we have to do the Maximo inputs as well. So if there's a PM plan or something around the PM or a job plan that need to be changed, our group does that as well. We have a CMMS admin, Michael Schlag, who was integral in what we've done here. He helps out as well and kind of directs us the best way to do that so that we get the information in correctly. But for the most part, we have the manager and the planner working together to try and get the work defined as what it needs to be, what inventory or what materials they're going to need. And the hope is for us to end up kitting that with our procurement department so that, it'll take a little bit of time away from the planner and the manager to be more apt to going out to the jobs to take a look at them and make sure that the technicians are performing that work properly. Hopefully that answered the question.
And he mentions, yes, that did.
Okay, great.
Hello, Michael. This is Brian Crowley with Smart. As a panelist, I don't actually see a mechanism to raise my hand, so I'm just going to assume that I've been called on.
Perfect.
Okay.
It looks like you've done a lot of great work developing business process over University of Delaware, and I saw on one of your slides you had some really well diagrammed business processes that looks like it puts processes into different swim lanes, passes them to different people. Over here at Smart, the way we've done it has typically been whiteboards and photographs of whiteboards. Are there any specific pieces of software that you recommend that have been helpful in developing business processes and documenting them well?
OneNote.
OneNote?
Yeah, actually we did the very same thing. We did a lot of whiteboarding sessions, like the big board behind me. We had a bunch of sessions with the technicians, with the managers, and with a few of our end users to get this kind of scoped out right and see where it would, to develop the swim lanes, who was going to take responsibility, what the paths would be. And then we would take pictures of that and then put it on our OneNote. We have a work execution OneNote that continues to this day. I mean, if there's something different or a change that we make, we put it into that. And then Visio. We use Visio pretty religiously about the workflows and how that management goes. We have a master document that we keep as kind of like the unblemished one, and any of the changes will be uploaded into that document. We had some different flows that came about with COVID where we had to have work execution specific for COVID related work. That flow was created as well and put into our master documentation so that if we ever had, and we didn't call it COVID, it was a pandemic or I can't remember the other word that we used for it, but it was basically that style workflow for extreme measures. We also created a workflow for requests for services. So maintenance and operations is very different where we do repairs and stuff, but we also have to do installations for our end users as well. So we created a request for service workflow that also got incorporated in that. And those were, again, whiteboard sessions that we would sit down and find out how that path was going to go, who is going to be defined as what needed to, to do that part, and then whatever decision trees we had to have, whether it was yes or no, or if it was urgent or not, that kind of thing. And then who was going to take responsibility for it once it got to that point. And then we keep those on that work execution OneNote and the master document.
Good question, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way.
Any other questions we've got? All right. Thank you, Mr. Guns.
Yeah.
Great presentation. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you have any follow-up questions, you want to get hold of Michael, I can definitely put you in touch. So with that, let's move on. EDI has a spotlight right now, and unfortunately, Joe had something that came up, so he couldn't attend the spotlight. So this is their website, the different services that they have available through Maximo, and they've got some software offerings as well. So I told Joe I'd give them honorable mention up there. So there's their website. So if you have any needs out there, get hold of Joe and team. I know Scott Yates is out there. He's a very good, talented guy in the Maximo space as well. So kudos to EDI. So now we are going to move on. I've got T. Leanne Tanner and Brian Cowley with Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit. We'll be chatting about optimizing your job plans with an overview of job plans in Maximo, how you can use job plans to better track, automate, and streamline your work processes, no matter what industry. And with that, T. Leanne, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. It's an honor as usual. And thank you to the presenters today. We appreciate your efforts. We're learning so much. Good afternoon, Maximo users. We hope all is well in your industries. If you think there's a room for improvements in the way your organization uses Maximo, guess what? You're not alone. We must all reevaluate our Maximo implementations and make improvements along the way. That is exactly what this presentation is about, how we can improve our job plans, refine our processes, and reduce costs. If that sounds like a good plan to you, then stick around and listen up. First, we'll have Brian Crowley introduce both of us and Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit, better known as Smart Train. After introductions, I will jump into the body of the presentation, and lastly, if time allows, which it seems like we've got plenty of time at this point, we'll have Q&A. If you are scratching your head on something, feel free to ask. We would like to encourage you to speak up if you do things differently and tell us why. There are many ways to run Maximo and organizations. This presentation is simply what we've found and done or might do. We would love to hear different viewpoints so we can all go home enriched. Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Teely. We can move to the next slide here. I'm going to start with just a brief introduction of Teely and myself, just so you get a little bit of an idea of who we are. Teely is our Railroad Information Systems Specialist here at SMART. And so what she does is kind of a 50-50 job. Half of it is running and maintaining our Maximo system, and the other half is operating as an IT technician here. And she's been a Maximo system administrator for quite some time. And actually, she came to SMART by way of our area Maximo user groups, and we're glad to have her. She's got a lot of experience with Maximo and very active in Maximo user groups, and it's a good resource. And you'll see our contact info on a future slide. Next slide, please.
Brian, there you go.
There we go. My name is Brian Crowley. You can see some information about me on this slide here. I'm the Information Systems Manager with Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit. I've worked my entire career in railroads, everything from being out on the track doing track inspection to operations technology, a little bit of, I did some dabbling in engineering, and eventually when SMART was getting ready to open up, I was asking the question, how are we going to track our work? How are we going to keep track of our assets and our materials? And that led to me heading up our Maximo implementation, and I've gotten us, for better or worse, to where we are today with our Maximo systems. And so throughout that time, I've learned a lot about good things to do and bad things to do, and hopefully some of those lessons learned we can bring to you guys today. Next slide, please. So what you're going to see up here is our contact information. We're going to share these slides after the presentation, or you can go ahead and screenshot it. Both Teely and I are really passionate about working in Maximo, and we like to have good connections within the industry. Being able to share knowledge at user groups like these only helps all of us. So please don't be shy. Feel free to reach out with Maximo questions. I'm sure we'll have some for you too. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit. What is SMART? SMART is a multimodal transit system, and that's a big word. It just means that there's multiple ways to get around. We have our main method is through rail. We're a commuter rail system running with 46 miles of track in Marin and Sonoma County, serving commuters, tourists, people who are just train enthusiasts, anyone who wants to get out on the railroad and travel throughout the two counties. But the other mode of transportation we have is our bike path. There's a multiple use path that runs parallel to the railroad throughout both counties. It allows people to make what we call the last mile connection. So you can ride your bicycle to a train station, load it onto the train, enjoy the beautiful view, hop off at another station and ride the bike to whatever your final destination is. We've got 12 stations and 9 two-car DMU train sets. A DMU is a rail car with an engine on every car. So as the trains get shorter and longer, we're able to maintain the same schedule because the amount of horsepower that it takes to move the train grows with the size of the train. We've got a whole bunch of different operational systems running up and down the railroad that we work on maintaining, and we use our Maximo system to maintain all of that. Next slide, please. So what we use is we use Maximo for transportation. I'm not going to read everything on this slide and bore you all, but we utilize that Maximo system mainly for the maintenance of our assets. We use work orders both for preventative maintenance and corrective maintenance, preventative maintenance being maintenance that we can plan in advance based on any kind of a schedule, and corrective maintenance being surprise maintenance where something broke and we have to fix it quickly, but we already have the beginnings of a plan put together on how to fix it. So that's part of what the meat of today's presentation will be going over. Also in the IT department, we use Maximo for service requests. Users can send an email to the IT department saying, my computer doesn't work, and we track it with service requests and solve it for them as quickly and efficiently as possible. You can see over on the right-hand side of the slide, there's a whole bunch of different modules in Maximo that we're currently making use of. And in the future, we want to develop more detailed condition monitoring and tie that to automatic generation of work orders. We also want to eventually implement a mobile solution. We didn't go with mobile from the get-go because we wanted to really clearly define what it was we were trying to do before we started to come up with a more pared down mobile solution. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Brian. That was a great introduction of us and SMART. Next is the skinny on our presentation. We consider out-of-the-box Maximo a bit ambiguous, quite daunting, and full of potential. As we have learned more about each module of Maximo and started to use it and understand it better, we have learned also to embrace it. Job plans can be simple or complicated. Our goal today is to take the mystery out of job plan setup and make the job plans help you with your work rather than making your work harder than needful trying to understand the job plan. In relating our experiences and our processes changes in Maximo to the job plan, we've broken the facets out into these 6 areas of interest. We'll go through each one of them together. Let's start with demystifying job plans. What are they? This is the basics. Most of us already know what this is. If you are new to the Maximo world, job plans are simply templates for any repeatable work that needs to be done on some form of a schedule. We create these templates of work to be done in the job plan module of Maximo. Usually job plans consist of tasks, estimated duration, and the appropriate labor information. The more advanced job plans will define materials, services, and tools. Logically organizing your tasks is going to be the key to your success with Maximo being accepted and embraced by those who need to use it the most, the field crew and their supervisors. Meters for any type of reading, condition monitoring, routes, safety plans, hazards, precautions, and lockout tagouts are all unique features of Maximo. Although they can be married with the job plan through the preventive maintenance UI, we will not be going into any depth of them in this short presentation of job plans. Now that we know what job plans are, let's find out where they are hiding in our organizations. Our organizations that date back before technology took off took care of their maintenance the best way individuals knew how, with pen and paper or on some kind of board on the wall. The need to accurately track and report on maintenance in computer systems led to the development of computerized maintenance management systems. The rest of the story is why we are here today. Some of the greatest reasons of improper maintenance are due to the loss of information regarding how to maintain assets properly. Job plans hidden in employees' minds are subject to forgetfulness, distractions, attrition, or just complete loss through retirement. Many employees have left organizations with valuable industry knowledge never having been recorded. Job plans on paper are subject to not being seen, misplaced, destroyed, or simply lost. Job plans on grease boards, chalkboards, or whiteboards are subject to getting erased accidentally and often do not have any detail to the tasks needing to be done. These forms of job plans are subject to messy handwriting and to be easily misunderstood, which can lead to increased mistakes in maintenance. Messy, handwritten, or lost job plans can consume an employee's time in trying to find or figure out how to do the maintenance properly. It can increase costs to repair an asset and it can increase costs to repair an asset that could have not failed if maintained properly on a schedule. Now, non-computerized job plans make gleaning information to help figure out root causes for failures difficult and time-consuming. These issues can cost organizations millions and millions of dollars every year. Confession time. When CMSs first get used, often work is just dumped into the system. This is to be able to say, hey, we got it in there, check it off, it's done. It's really a good thing that we can evaluate these existing job plans in Maximo and make them better. In my experience with Maximo implementations, I have seen job plans that had more than one crew working on the task, had the responsibility dispersed, were incredibly long, or were not organized logically and could cost time if actually followed step by step. When I've tried to read through some of these dumped in job plans, it became very confusing as to who was supposed to do what and when. Just know, if your organization has any job plans like this, you're not alone. It's a common mistake. There is hope. Today, we will give out tips on how to make it all better. If my screen will advance, there you go. Gathering job plans from all their hiding places seems daunting. It's a big job. Take one asset at a time, or one type of asset or one area at a time. If you have one of those dump-in job plans, you can also start there. Work with the worst to make it into a grouping of your best job plans. Take your weakness and make it your strength. The crews will notice. It will give them hope and encourage their help for the next worst one to be fixed. Here are a few tips on how to start getting organized with your job plans. We have found Excel is an excellent place to do this. Divide out tasks by asset, frequency, and craft. Prepare for sequencing the job plans. We will go over this in more detail a little later in the presentation. On separate Excel spreadsheets, break out asset types with the meter readings, condition monitoring, routes, safety plans, hazards, precautions, lockout, tagouts, or any other features needed. Organizing it all in Excel gives you much more flexibility in copying, sorting, changing, renaming until the data is right where it needs to be to put it into Maximo. Corrective maintenance or other non-schedulable maintenance can be put into a job plan to record the tasks, the other needed information for, and other and other needed information for the corrective maintenance. CM job plans can be attached to condition monitoring or to be directly pulled into a work order. Having a job plan for corrective maintenance can turn corrective maintenance nearly into planned maintenance by having all the information needed at the crew's fingertips in just a few clicks. This can reduce costs through having a pre-laid out plan, which reduces mistakes, confusion, or time trying to figure out who to call or what to do. This is extremely helpful for newer employees. It gives them a great place to get started on fixing the asset with a lot of questions already answered. Next, let's talk about where in Maximo we can connect job plans. Job plans have several connections in Maximo. The most used is with the preventive maintenance module, which generates work orders on a schedule. Most everyone in the audience should be familiar with the preventive maintenance module. Another connection for job plans is in condition monitoring. When an asset is outside of its meter reading limits, the condition monitoring module can generate a work order with a job plan for either above the limits or attach another job plan if the reading is below the limit. A couple of examples of why you might want a job plan for a reading outside the limits would be the amperage on an asset is either too high or too low, or the measurement is too low on a wheel diameter. Lastly, there's a reason we can put a job plan directly on a work order. That is for corrective maintenance job plans, which we talked about creating earlier in the presentation. Of course, there are other features in Maximo that pertain to getting the work done. However, those are usually tied to the asset, the location, the PM, not necessarily the job plan. They can be mentioned as a task on the job plan so that they are not missed. Some of these are meters for any type of readings, condition monitoring, routes, safety plans, hazards, precautions, and lockout tagouts, which would all be a completely different presentation if you wanted to go into each one of those. Let's talk about the benefits of sequencing our job plans. Why sequence or nest our job plans? Sequencing, or nesting as I like to call it, is a great, it is is great to help reduce the number of work orders coming out at or near the same time for an asset. The nested job plan can come out with all the information needed for that time period without duplication. If not sequenced, then at 1 year, the monthly might come out on the first week and get done. In this example, the oil would be topped off, okay? Then the 4-month might come out the next week because it got off schedule and get done, but with some duplication of efforts. Dang, I just topped this off last week and I have to change the oil now. Or then the next week, the 1 year might come out and there they go again. If I'd only known, I would have just changed the filter when I had it in the shop last week. You get where we're coming from here? Are you seeing why sequencing can have save time and money? Sequencing can prevent this type of scenario happening. Over the years, I cannot tell you how many times I had various lead workers come to me and complain about this very type of issue. It was always much appreciated when we fixed it with sequencing. Making Maximo job plans user-friendly with sequencing will save the organization more time and money than anything else done in the system. Well, it's one of the things anyway. If it's not user-friendly, they will not use it. They will fight it and they will call it names, the system. And it's not the system. Shh, don't tell them. I like to call it GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Well, so how do we make sequencing work for us? There are probably a few of you out there that struggle with sequencing. I know it took me time to process this in my head, and it's even harder to explain. Hopefully I can shed some light on it for those struggling with sequencing. Let's take an asset that needs monthly maintenance and more tasks at 6 months and yet more at a year. Nesting means that the job plan is written for the 1 month, duplicated, and the 6-month tasks are added. It may also mean that the 1-month task is either dropped or changed. Next, the 6-month is copied and the 1-year task is added. Sequencing on the PM would be set at the frequency of 1 month, and the 1 month, of course, at 1. The 6-month would be at 6, and the 1 year would be at 12. The beauty of this, at 6 months, there is 1 work order, not 2, and at 1 year, there is 1 work order, not 3. That right there means less confusion, less time to record the work done. Fewer work orders per asset means a savings in time and resources. The crew can now get in more wrench time without having to scratch their head and figure out the paperwork duplication. When prepping for sequencing, the first thing to ask is, does every frequency go evenly into the next higher frequency? If the answer is no, then the job plans cannot be sequenced. If this is charted out, it can be seen more easily. Something like this chart can help. Dailies would be a frequency I would rarely sequence. Maybe with a weekly, but even that would be rare. One thing to remember with sequencing weeklies and monthlies is that there are actually 13 4-week months in a year. The sequencing would be 1 for weekly and 4 for monthly, right? And 52 for annually, not 48. That means you're going to get 12 monthlies and another month where you do an annual. So you're going to actually do the monthlies 13 times a year if you use the weekly. If you use 48, your annual will be 1 month shy of a year every year, backing through the months. So you need to ensure that if you use 48, you can do the annual steps any time of the year. This is an example of why the sequencing needs to be to progress evenly in multiples for each frequency. Looking at 5, 10, and 15-year maintenance needs, we show how the nested tasks would generate work orders. Nesting all 5, 10, and 15-year maintenance tasks together seems like it should work. 5 goes into both 10 and 15 evenly, right? For nesting purposes, this doesn't work because 10 does not go into 15 evenly. Look at the example on the left. With the PM having a 5-year frequency, the nesting of the 5, 10, and 15, then the 10-year would come out every 5 years, 3 times in a row instead of every other as it should. Great big red X on that one. Don't do it this way. The next 2 examples are how the sequencing should be handled in 2 PMs if it makes sense to do so. Either the 5-year with a 10 and the 15-year separate, or the 5-year with a 15 and the 10-year separate. The decision would come down to the tasks and which are more closely related to each other or dependent on each other. If none are closely related, then the 3 separate PMs may be the best solution. Why? Because if an independent part fails, then the 5, the 10, or the 15-year PMs could be independently rescheduled out from the failure date. Sequencing is an awesome ability, but not always the best solution. Next, we're going to hear from Brian about optimizing our inventory by adding items to a job plan.
Thank you, Teely. And I have a bit of a confession myself. That first chart on the far left on Teely's last slide is how I implemented our job plan sequencing on our initial implementation of Maximo, which really goes to show how important it is to really, truly understand these systems. Because, after a few months, we had a lot of confused workers and one very confused system administrator. But if you take the time to sit back and learn it, you really will reap the benefits. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about connecting your inventory to your job plans. So we have several storerooms here at Smart where we stock inventory, and you really want to keep the minimum amount of inventory on hand. And the reason is that way you can keep the maximum amount of money in pocket. And once you buy a part, it's just that part. Before you spend the money, you can use it for anything. So having proper implementation of your job plans means that you can really accurately plan the resources that you'll need to complete your work. So not only does it give you a good idea of what your tasks will be, but it also gives you an idea of the amount of labor you'll need and the amount of materials. So on these slides, you can see there's a labor and materials tab, which allows you to enter in what you need. Having those things planned out allows us to keep a just-in-time type of inventory system where we make sure that we have the right parts on hand and not more than we need, and we also aren't short on parts as well. Next slide, please. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Basically, what we talked about is how to really develop and improve and perfect your job plans in your organizations. After you break out your job plans by your asset, your crew, your frequency, and the type of maintenance, you get the final approval from the crew who's going to be using it. You want to really keep the end users of the product involved in the development of the product. They're using it, they're able to evaluate it and improve it, and that means that they really own it and it makes sense to them. And I think this also conveniently ties back to Michael Jordan's presentation about master data and data quality. We're seeing, and we did not collaborate beforehand about this at all, but you're seeing just from two separate organizations independently arriving at how very important it is to really ensure the integrity of your data, to ensure that you're looking at this from a wholesale view and that you're putting the right data in the first time, all the time. And so anyway, just a good takeaway. Next slide, please. We also talked today about demystifying job plans with a focus on job plan sequencing. We can centralize our job plans from all kinds of places. We can gather and organize that data and break it out by your asset type or how often the tasks are done or who's completing the work. And when we do this, it can decrease your cost because time is money, and we save money by reducing redundant work and reducing the time it takes to hunt for work, hunt for tools, hunt for materials. We also looked at covering optimizing connections to Maximo in inventory. Like I said, you have less time hunting for materials. If you know that they're in your storeroom, then you know that you're ready to complete your work. Also, we briefly talked about in the very beginning, condition monitoring, which is something that we're currently working on, and we'd love to hear from the group. What are your experiences with condition monitoring? We're trying to put meters into Maximo and fire off work orders based on meter readings. So a perfect example is we have these switches, and you have a little gauge that you check the physical distance between 2 points on the railroad switches. And once they get to a certain width, because the metal is physically eroded away, we need to perform some maintenance on it. And if we can know the rate, like 1 millimeter per month that this switch is degrading, then we can predict the failure. We know not that it is out of tolerance, but we know when it will be out of tolerance and properly plan for that maintenance. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So to kind of wrap it all together, there's a lot that we can get from properly planning our maintenance. And a job plan is more than just a good task list. It's being strategic about organizing your tasks, about properly scheduling your maintenance, and clearly defining what you need. Not only is it a task list, but it's also good material planning and good labor planning that all come together to make a very efficient, time-saving maintenance program to help keep your assets up and operational. Because if you don't schedule your preventative maintenance for your assets, they will schedule it for you. So thank you so much. Having said that, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions.
And we do have a couple, Brian. Michael Guns, I'll just open up your mic, or you can open up your mic and fire away your questions. Because I know your first one you had to use Max Loader to create these for bulk input, similar with assets.
No, I haven't used that myself anyway. I don't know if Brian did that with the original implementation.
Not for our day-to-day data loads. That's a mouthful. We're a relatively small organization. We're about 130 employees running a, I think I said it was about a 46-mile railroad. So the amount of data we have is conveniently small. So we're able to, at this point, just kind of brute force our data entry.
Okay. So with that being said, are you identifying your job plans by task and assigning that task to the craft with your scheduling planning processes?
We're actually assigning the whole job plan to a crew, so so that it can be signed out to an individual. If you have too many people trying to work on the same job plan, it gets a little more confusing. It's harder for two people to access it and update it at the same time because it'll kick somebody else's information out if somebody else saves in between. So we really want to separate those job plans and the work orders so that individuals can go in and take care of them. Now, we still will have a couple people working on them, but a lot of times if that's happening, it's going to be the dailies that we have for the vehicle maintenance, and they all kind of know what they're supposed to do, and then they record it after. They're not in their real-time recording. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. One of the things that we have started tinkering around with is using the task-based maintenance so that we can assign the task to the craft and then schedule them that way. So yeah. I was wondering to see if it was different elsewhere. That's all.
Here's the problem that I've seen in the past on this is when you have different crews working on it, now you have two different supervisors that should be making sure that the work gets done on both of those supervisors trying to make sure a work order gets done. It's easier if you pull them out and you say, work with this other crew. And that's what we've done, especially when I worked at the water agency. We just said, contact this and coordinate your work with them. And you only had the tasks on the job plan for either mechanics or the electricians so that they knew that they had their list and they didn't have to read over the other person's items to do. Right. It really helped a lot when we started doing that because now you have your list and say, the electricians have one list, the mechanics have another list, the maintenance workers have another list. They're all coordinating together, but they get it on their personal list of what they need to do. It's maybe assigned to a certain worker, and it's on their list. If you have it separated, you have a harder time assigning that work order to a particular person. Therefore, that order is on somebody else's list. And so it just makes it easier to pull them apart and have the responsibility for one work order to one crew, one supervisor.
Okay.
So I'd like to add to what T. Leanne had to say on that. We had a situation where we had a work order that needed to be handled by a whole bunch of different crafts. And so what happened is many years ago, a truck struck one of our rail cars and caused some pretty extensive damage to it. And so some work needed to be handled by laborers, some work needed to be handled by mechanics, and yet more work needed to be sent outside the agency to go to specialists that could do certain types of welding or whatever the other specialized tasks were. And so instead of having one work order with all those tasks for all those different crafts and labor rates and materials, we created a DMU master repair work order. And then from that work order, we were able to create child work orders and independently manage those child work orders so that this is the list of tasks the laborers need to do with an associated job plan, labor tracking, material tracking. This is the list of maintenance that the mechanics need to do with materials, labor, hours, etc. And what's nice is that when you do the parent-child relationship with work orders, you can't close the top level one until the lower level ones have been closed. So it's a good way to track from a wholesale perspective, is my overall goal completed? And then you can drill down and take a look at what's been done and what hasn't been done. So that's how we sort of handled the multiple crafts job plan issue.
Hi, Brian, you're just going to read a comment from Joe Davis. I think it follows right in line with what you just said. He says PM hierarchies can be used for multi-trade groups as an option. And he's absolutely right. It lends itself to that parent-child relationship, just as you described. He
Right.
also had a question. Are you using workflow system if using meter function of generating PMs?
I don't think so. We're using workflow for other things, but not for that.
Okay, and then another question that came up from another attendee. What are you using for job plan naming conventions that call out CMs separate from PMs?
Well, we really haven't started building those job plans for CMs yet. It's definitely something that we can do. How I have typically seen it done is that all of your job plans that are attached to PMs will have whatever frequency they're used at, whether it's 1 year, 1 month, or it could be 5,000 miles or so many hours. So you have that frequency on the name of the job plan, therefore you can tell right away that it is a preventive maintenance one. And then the corrective maintenance, you can always put CM right in the title of it, and then you can pull up all your CMs quite easily if you have that. But typically a job plan is not, if it's not attached to a PM, it's not going to, come out and just automatically generate a work order. You can attach those job plans like outside of the limit. Say something is higher than a limit that it's supposed to be, right? So you can go upper limit job plan or something like that. We at the water agency, we used to call it CM_job plan for a very generic one. We'd attach it to anything that was CM, and it would give you a list of things that you need to remember to put in your work order, which is what needs to be done, what was done, and what were the parts and things that you need to add. And that was just kind of a reminder. So anytime that a work order came out, they could print it out and it had some spacing in there for them to write in if they hand did it before it got into the system, because we had a lot of paperwork back then. And but definitely you can either name them in the unique identifier with CM and then either a generic number or what it's for, or the other thing that you can do, and I haven't done this, but I know that it's possible, is you can go into the asset and attach that job plan as or actually I guess it's in the job plan, and you can attach that asset as to where this is going to be used. Therefore, when you go in and create a work order, you put that asset on there. It's one of those items that can then be picked as your CM job plan.
We do have a couple of CM job plans, but they are really buried. And the way that they get looked up is the user would search in the description. So for example, one would be a cleanup on a rail platform. If there was a big trash spill, we have a facility maintenance tech who goes out there and does a cleanup. And there's just a list of like, did you check the trash cans? Did you clean the glass, et cetera, et cetera. Or our HVAC system has condenser coils, which we take a look at, and maybe they need to be cleaned, maybe they don't. And if they need to, which is a corrective condition, then we can create a work order with that condenser cleaning job plan associated. But for right now, because we're really early in the implementation of job plans on corrective maintenance, they're just done through auto number, and it's kind of tribal knowledge that someone knows to search for HVAC condenser coil cleaning and just load it into the work order.
So, and I didn't even know about them because I've been so focused on just trying to clean up our other job plans. The thing that we can do so that it's not that institutional knowledge that somebody can walk away with is to attach it to, or attach that asset to that job plan, and then you can find it quite easily. So anyway, I think our time is up, and I think that Scott is probably going, let's go. So you guys can definitely give us a call. You can call us if you need help with sequencing and you're scratching your head on it. I am more than happy to help with it. I've done plenty of it, and I can walk you through, or talk it out with you and help you with it. Our number is on the screen on the presentation, and we both are happy to help anytime anybody needs anything. So
thank you, Brian. Thank you, Team Leanne. And we will be sharing the presentation too on the various sites we have. And I know, Brian, speaking of that tribal knowledge, it's so critical now with the younger workforce joining and the tribal chiefs out there retiring. It's all up here, right? So transitioning them to get it on paper on what they do is really critical to be able to transfer that knowledge to the new generation coming through working their work plans. So excellent. Thank you very much, Tilly. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Scott.
And thank you.
Bet. And our next sponsor spotlight will be Prometheus Group. Richard, you should be able to share your screen. So Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds great. And while we're transitioning, Joe did have one last comment that job plan template types as well as classifications can potentially be used for that identification of CM versus PM. So thanks for that additional info.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Joe. You're up. Good.
All right. Are you guys seeing my screen now?
Yep, we can. Rich.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. My name is Richard Almendaris. I'm the Director of Professional Services here at Prometheus Group. Here for the last several years, I've had a specialty in planning and scheduling and data management with Maximo. I've been working with the Maximo system for about 20 years or so. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you, and thanks for promoting the West Mountain Regional Group as well.
You're welcome.
It's all good.
Just a bit about Prometheus Group history. We were founded in 1998, headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, with over 14 global offices to date. We offer integrated and intuitive software plus partnerships with industry-leading companies. And we also have quite a few remote employees like Scott and myself. We offer the Prometheus platform. So for that platform, planning and scheduling and mobility, a couple of products that Scott and I hold dear to hearts. We were part of the Data Splice and Solify acquisitions that help bring planning and scheduling and mobility to the specific Maximo space within Prometheus Group. Additionally, master data governance, as Michael Jordan was demonstrating and speaking about earlier today in our session, permitting and safety, STO, shutdown, turnarounds, and outages, reporting and analytics, as well as contractor management. We serve quite a few industries. We are in the top 8 oil and gas, the top 7 mining and metals, as well as pulp and paper, and the top 6 chemical and utilities and power industries. Outside of those industries, we also support the public sector, manufacturing, transportation, offshore wind and renewables, as well as life sciences and other industries that are additionally not listed on this slide deck. But Maximo has a pretty wide span, as well as we support SAP. So we're in virtually almost every industry out there. I think this is what we refer to as our NASCAR slide deck. So just a few of the customers that we work with. Many of these, you should recognize some of these logos and these names. Quite a few of them you probably use on a day-to-day basis. Okay, just a bit about the Prometheus journey. So as we mentioned, Prometheus was founded in 1998. I'm going to skip past some of the earlier years, as I was personally not a part of those years with Prometheus Group, and I will move into the 2018 and beyond timeframe. So as I mentioned, both Data Splice and Solify were acquired in 2018, helping to bring mobility and planning and scheduling and data management to the forefront of Prometheus Group in the Maximo space. A little earlier in that time frame, Pipeline Group as well as Sage Technologies were acquired. And then a bit later, past 2019, Indica and Roser, as well as WorkTech, Visia, and Utopia. So these are likely organizations you've heard in the Maximo space as well. WorkTech, as an example, working with time and attendance, contractor management, and other things. So this really has just helped to evolve the Maximo space and has brought in a lot of additional resources. Speaking as a past resource of Solify, as separate mobility and say planning and scheduling companies, we served our customers very, very well in those spaces, attempted to be the best in the industry, as others do as well. But as Prometheus Group, we now can offer a platform of offerings to our customers to help them succeed. So whereas I myself would have aided one of our customers in planning and scheduling, however, perhaps we weren't the best at performing analytics or other things of that nature, we now have a combined Prometheus platform where we've excelled in many different areas, and we can offer that full platform to our customers to help them succeed. Additionally, I have Scott's contact information. I think Scott has done a great job in leading this effort, and I'm sure many of you guys know him already. His contact information is displayed here. And as was discussed previously, we were happy to be a part of the award for Best Work Execution Management Implementation, just as Udell, Michael Guns, and the rest of his team. So we appreciate being nominated and for achieving that award. So that's it for Prometheus Group. If we have any questions from any of you guys later, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thanks, Richard. All right, our next segment is what everybody's been waiting for. We are going to dive into Marianne Wood with Chelan County Public Utilities District, planning and scheduling for success. So this is an open format discussion group. So we've got, I'll open up Marianne's mic, and we'll, if you want to raise your hand or put some chat notes together, we'd be glad to open your mic up. In fact, we would prefer opening your mic up for planning and scheduling, because again, this is an interactive session. I know we've been talking a lot about planning and scheduling through some of our prior presentations. So this is a good time to ask your questions. So, you know, what are your pressing issues or concerns around planning and scheduling for success? So Mary Ann.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and so glad to at least be talking to everybody. It'd be nice to actually be seeing everybody in person, so we're hoping next year that's what we can do. My goal here is I just want to kind of just want to get discussion going around planning and scheduling. A little bit about me. I'm from Chelan County PUD. We're out here in beautiful central Washington, not where it rains in Seattle, but the other side. We're right smack dab in the middle of the state, so a really beautiful area. We have the Columbia River. I am the Maximo administrator for hydro generation. So I've been working with them and Maximo for over 20 years now, so dating myself. But we've done a lot with Maximo. We've had it since 1997. We've been doing a lot of things. I enjoyed the presentations. Thank you again, everyone, very much. Doing some really good thing with planning and scheduling and PMs. We've actually done all that and some more. We do actually also use meters. So we are doing meter-based PMs as well, have been for some time. So just want to get discussions open and you know, what are some things you want to talk about? What are some issues you might be having with your planning? How is the planners working for your group? Do you have a lot of planners? Do you need more planners? I think everyone could always say they could use almost some more planners because they're very much overworked. But yeah, just want to get discussions going. So anybody have something we like to talk about?
And what we can do is we do have a few poll questions that we can throw up to kind of get those creative juices flowing. So let's go ahead and launch our first poll out there. Give you a couple minutes. So, and Marianne, if you want to talk through these, go right ahead.
Okay, sounds good. I will. Have you posted it? I'm not seeing anything, but maybe I need to open it. It might be
a little bit of lag time here.
Okay, not a problem.
The poll should be open right now.
Yeah, I may have opened another window on or behind your screen.
Yeah, so the first poll that came up should be, what's your planner to worker ratio? 1 to 30 or less, or 1 to 30 or more? And you want to talk about planner worker ratio?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Again, I don't think there's anybody out there that says, oh, we have the perfect amount of planner to worker ratio. I think all of our planners are a little overworked from time to time. I know that I can talk, you know, again, I'm with hydro generation. We have 3 hydro dams. Our 2 largest hydro dams, one on Rock Island, one at Rocky Reach. We are now up to 3 planners per hydro dam. So that's been a big asset for our planners to get that 3rd planner in place. So now that we started with actually 1 electrical, 1 mechanical at both hydro dams, and now we've added a 3rd in there to help with the workload because the workload was getting very heavy. So I think we're in a really good spot. We do have some other planners throughout the district, so that's always a big thing for us to make sure we're giving our planners the support that they need. And so
it looks like, yeah, sorry.
Nope, go right ahead. I was
just going over the ratios here.
Please
so
do.
For the 1 to 30 or less, 29%, and 1 to 30 or more, 71% is the majority.
Wow. So, so if you do a little research that you want we should be reversed. We'd like it to see more that way. So I think everybody is experiencing just what we've experienced ourselves in the past of being, needing more planners per workers, because it's definitely a lot of work on their part. So that's probably what I expected to hear, though it would be nice if we could see that turn around. And I think that just happens in time. So yeah, it's just, but again, if nothing comes to mind right now, or there's nothing particular you want to talk about, my goal here is, and hopefully we're all together next St. Patrick's Day, lovely California, which coming from where I hope we have a lot of snow this year because we need it here, but hopefully it'll be a perfect time for me to get somewhere warm. But my hope is that maybe we can actually do this in person, and then we can actually have some good questions, maybe reach out to everyone ahead of time and get some questions in place so we could actually have some one-on-one, more group discussion on these things.
Marianne, this is Mike Guns.
Hi, Mike. Good presentation, by the way. I wanted to thank you. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, thanks. One of the things that we're noticing for the planner to technician ratio is to try and get people's heads wrapped around that and how we do that. I know that the maintenance planning from Doc Palmer, that book is awesome. If anybody has read it already, but there's a really good kind of description on how a planner actually improves the productivity of mechanics based on the use. And we're kind of delving into that right now, where we're kind of trying to break it down so that we can show, all right, for every so many mechanics, you need this many planners, because that'll help with the efficiency of those planners and the mechanics themselves. So that's a suggestion I would have is to take a look at that. It's a really good resource.
Yeah, that's a very good resource. I've read it myself. Thank you very much. Yeah, the other thing I always like to say, for newer people that are starting to build their group and their planners, and it had the importance of bringing your planners up to the crafts, and that's a really big key thing. I can't say I have not seen 6 people be successful doing it reverse. In fact, we've met with some other colleagues here in Central Washington that did it the exact opposite. Their planners actually came from more like a management position, and didn't come through the crafts, and they're doing fine. They're doing great work. But we've just found having our planners come through the crafts, it just gave more accountability. The workers, had more faith in them knowing what they needed to know. So I guess that's another good question. Maybe I can fly that one out there. Is anybody using somebody who's not come through the crafts as a maybe mechanical or electrical planner?
We have those that have had experience in it, and we also have another one that has not had experience in it. So we kind of have one of each.
Which works well too, because they can work with each other on that. And that's also a good thing. Yeah, definitely agree with that. And who was it that it was the SMART group, by the way, good presentation as well. And you have not done meter-based PMs yet?
We're working on it at this point. We're running a pretty lean organization, so we actually have no planners for setting that stuff up. Between Teely and I, we're the 2 Maximo system administrators for the entire agency.
Yeah, I've been there. Trust me, we have, and it's hard, Go ahead, Teely.
Sorry, I was going to say, at the water agency, we use the meter-based for a lot of things, for all of our fleet, for all of, and those were odometer readings, of course. We also had hour meetings on many of our pieces of equipment, things like big motors and pumps and generators and all that stuff. So I am quite familiar with meter reading.
Yeah. It is a good thing, and we're using them exactly the same way. in mostly for fleet, but we also do it. We do have some also in some other areas, so it's definitely works really well. And we are also using condition monitoring too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
I'm curious
And-
about the new scheduling software, what folks are using.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Do we have that poll question coming up, Michael?
We do. We will have that coming up. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to ask
poll-
that question. So yeah, we would be interested to hear, you know, who's using Scheduler, if anyone is.
Yep. It's up on the screen right now. You should be able
Great.
to see that. So we had 43% using Maximo Scheduler.
Nice.
We've got 14% with third-party scheduling software, which is integrated with Maximo. 14% out there using Excel spreadsheets.
Yep.
And almost 30% with no scheduling software. So, you know, that the age of digital transformation, this scheduling software is a really great tool, as attested by a couple folks presenting today as well.
Very good. And I think we'll never get away from Excel. I think Excel is always going to be a part of our, even the SMART group spoke of how they you know, very methodically put together job plans, which I would kudos on that too. And that's exactly the best way to do that. And I learned the best ways from my group, and we did everything we do very methodically. Anything we're putting into place, we lay it out first in an Excel spreadsheet before we put it into play. And again, we were fortunate to have planners from the get-go, so that was good. That's a kudos to our management for foreseeing the need for it. So we actually had planners in place that literally helped us build our hierarchy from day one. So that was a huge plus on our part, and that made a big difference.
That is, yes. So the next poll that we launched was, are you assigning resources to work orders?
So that's a question? Or is that a poll?
No, that's the poll that's been launched already. So
okay.
You should.
Good.
You should see it on your screen.
So
work order
Mary,
tracking.
Yes.
I don't see one of the options that we use as a help on how to view assigned work orders. We do assign work orders and work order tracking. We start in the PM, of course, and get it assigned. But we use the Start Center to be able to separate those out so that the maintenance of way track people will see just theirs, or the vehicle maintenance will just see theirs. So we use the Start Center.
Yeah, and we do as well. Yep. In fact, we have more Start Centers than I think we'd like to, but that's okay. We have a lot. And we have, as an administrator, yes, I can attest. So in generation, we actually, because everybody just wanted to see it different ways. So one of our groups likes to see, the journeymen like to see theirs by work type. Another group wants to see them by resource, and another group wants to see them by foreman. So we have several different ones, but yes, it's exactly what our foremen do. They, on their Start Center, they will see all work orders that are pertain to them. We usually break them up by in progress, you know, approved, in progress, completed are the kind of the basics. And yeah, that's exactly what we do as well. We're actually anxious to get started using inspections. We are moving to 7612. In fact, it's in our dev environment right now. So we are starting to create inspections. And so we'll be using those new work centers. So interesting.
Our upgrades on Saturday.
Oh, woohoo, good for me. Let me know how it goes on Monday. No.
We've done a lot of legwork ahead of time to try and get things ready to go. And, you know, we have like our Easy Max Mobile and the Prometheus and Acquire stuff is all, you know, ready to go, and worked out the kinks and did the testing ahead of time. So like the transition should be pretty seamless.
Yeah, and that's what we're feeling too.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. You let me know how that goes before we dive into it. No, we're feeling the same way. We're hoping to get well, we're going to do some administrator testing to start, and then after that, our plan is to get our planners on board and do some testing as well, and then probably go live sometime in November.
This is a really good result to this poll. I would highly suggest that if you have the ability to do estimates versus actuals from your job plans or how your work is being done, it will save you money in the long run.
Good. Yeah, the poll we just launched was, do you compare estimates to actuals on your job plans? And the majority, 67% yes, 33% no. So, you know, area of opportunity is Michael mentioned, it's really a time saver. And, you know, one of my favorite quotes is, you know, knowledge equals time. I mean, if you can save time through knowledge, you're saving money, right? So that's the bottom line to that. So
this was a really pivotal spot for us when we were trying to optimize the PMs. You know, looking at the hours that the mechanics were actually spending versus what originally was put in our system, and you know, when they started Maximo at the university, they kind of put a hodgepodge of stuff together instead of really looking at the manufacturer's recommendations and or getting the technicians' input on it as well. So as we've been going through this the last couple of years, it's been really important to look at like a 3-year average of what the mechanics have actually been spending time on it. And that was kind of like a key thing for us to get the optimization process going and started.
Yeah, definitely.
Maria?
yep. Next poll. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, another reason that you would want to know what your actuals versus your estimates are is that we used it to kind of balance how many people were on what crew. So depending on the area in which a lead worker was over and how many estimated hours that they had, they would get crew members, but they also had to justify it with the actual hours. And if they needed more, it was very justifiable to say, hey, I need to hire one more person. This is why. I've got more work, just PM work, not even going to the corrective, than, you know, I have people to do. So it was
Right.
really great, and helped a lot with balancing how many people are on each crew.
Good.
The next poll I launched was, are you utilizing PM forecasts? So we've got 20% at no, not in their current plan, 40% no, but they'd like to use this capability in the future. 20% is we use out of the box Maximo forecast capability to run our reports, and the 20% is we use Gantt to display, modify Maximo's PM forecast. So anything around forecasting that you would like to open up for discussion?
I thought the feature is very good. I have tested with it. We do it a little differently here because in generation, we actually generate all our PMs a year in advance. We are also using Primavera, and that does our yearly and 5-year, 10-year plans. So we're doing it a little differently. So we don't have the luxury of using PM forecasting when it came out. But I have tested it, and I thought it worked really well if you are somebody who is just generating on a 3-month or 6-month basis. Anybody have any other comments?
At the university, we do a 60-day cycle. So we generate 60 days ahead of time for inventory and other ordering, but we actually use our Click implementation for our dashboarding to do date profiling to set it up so that we can kind of project out what those forecasts are going to be. We haven't used the Maximo forecasting tool yet, but it's something that we're probably going to look at during this upgrade.
Mhm.
It's pretty good tool so that you can see like what your workloads are going to be in a 1 year, 5 year kind of span. So you can look what your resources are going to be. It's pretty good.
Great. Now, we had a lot of people comment about Maximo Scheduler. If I could ask the question for my information, is anybody using Scheduler, the newer Scheduler products that haven't updated in 7.6.2 yet?
I've only used like
excuse me.
the testing portion of what we've been doing for the new
Mhm.
upgrade. So,
Yeah.
but everything seems to be working really well.
Good.
The Prometheus product gives us a lot of flexibility, and working with them, we've got a couple little caveats to help us get it out to our mechanics a little bit better.
Very good.
Yep. One more thing
Okay,
before we.
yeah.
2 seconds, Scott.
Right.
With the PM forecasting capability and the comparing of the job plans, estimates to actuals, what a lot of people don't also realize is that comparison of the job plan values and then making modifications based on that analysis will have a big impact, or can have a big impact on your PM forecast as well. So we have a client that actually generates a 16-year PM forecast
Wow.
in order to see where they're going to have spikes and lows,
Mhm.
in an effort to move some of those bigger PMs, those 5-year, 10-year, 12-year PMs, to help keep their resources consistent and to reduce contract labor.
Very interesting. Very good.
And the last poll that I've launched is resource availability. Are you capturing it? For example, vacation hours, sick hours, etc., for your planning and scheduling. And we've got 20% yes and 80% no.
Interesting.
This is a tough one because for those who answered no, have you looked at it for your availability range? Because when you're scheduling, it's going to be important to know when those folks are out on vacation or sick. It's kind of hard to get people to, you're going to have those onesie twosie days that they take off like within a week or two. But if they know that they have like a planned vacation for a week, having that available so that they're not there, you won't be scheduling them accordingly. So.
Yeah, good point, Mike. All right, we just have a couple minutes left on this discussion group. Anybody want to make a comment, have a question?
If I could just, again, get you guys all thinking about some planner thoughts and questions and maybe some good subjects we can discuss. I'm hoping we're in person for St. Patrick's Day next year.
Yes.
And I'd like to get another breakout session going, and maybe we can actually get those questions ahead of time and do some good discussion about it. So I appreciate everybody's time and thoughts, and I think I'm always available. Please feel free to reach out as well anytime. Come visit us up in Central Washington when people can travel again.
Thanks, Marianne.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to shoot me a note and I'll hook you up with Marianne, and we can answer any of your burning questions that you would like to ask that didn't pop up into your mind right away. So, and as Marianne mentioned, I didn't mention this earlier at the start of our session, but we were initially going to have this particular meeting in Sacramento at the California Railroad Museum, but the pandemic has taken its toll, and so we turned this into a webinar. But we've already secured the Sacramento location for the California Railroad Museum for St. Patty's Day of next year, which is March 17th. So hopefully we'll see a majority of you folks there. We will again have breakfast and lunch, and St. Patty's Day is going to be interesting after hours party. So stay tuned for details on that. So with that, our next sponsor spotlight will be Z Pro Solutions. And I've got Bob Keeley will be doing a spot on that. So Bob, I will turn it over to you.
All right, screen should be coming up.
Yeah, got a little lag time. There, you're up.
All right, great. So Scott, just I for one and two looking forward to the meeting at the Railroad Museum. I was personally going to travel to make sure that I was there because it's just something I want to see. But knowing that it's going to be on St. Patty's Day, are you providing the green beer?
Well, you know, we'll get somebody to provide that. I'm thinking IBM. We'll hit up some folks, but yeah, we'll have a great green beer after party. I'm pretty sure.
All right, sounds good.
Or it might be the night before. Anybody coming in early, so we'll stay tuned for details.
Gotcha. All right, my screen just locked up on me, so I'll go ahead and move it forward. I was also going to pick on you, Scott, and say, look, I found the right logo.
You did.
All right, so thank you for this time to talk about Z-Pro Solutions. We're proud to be a sponsor of this event and the PAC Mug in general. Proud to work with Scott and others, within the steering committee to put together these events. And we too are looking forward to the on-site, just like everybody has said, because it's always best to, get to see people face to face, like we did at Maximo World back in August. But this pandemic has really been a ringer on all of our travel capabilities and desire to do so. So understood. To talk a little bit about Z-Pro, we are a Maximo solution provider. I feel like, everybody that's on the line probably knows this sponsor spotlight probably as well as I do, because, as you all know, as a Maximo provider, we also are very keen on supporting the user community, and therefore we're involved with a number of user groups. But yeah, as other spotlights were said, we provide full gamut of services for Maximo, everything from integration and technical resources, upgrades, getting you into the cloud, mobility, security, anything that if it has Maximo tied to it, we do it. And we also like to say that we go beyond Maximo by providing strategic asset management advisory services. And I'll chat about that a little bit. Just a little bit more of an introduction. We are asset management experts. We are certified as such, as well as being an SBE, MBE, and DBE. We're heavily focused in the West Coast right now via our Sacramento office. In fact, we have 18 positions posted on our website as far as hiring. So I'm spending a lot of my time, since I'm the director of operations, reading resumes right now. So if you are aware of anybody who's looking for a Maximo type position or position that might be based in Northern California, please have them contact me, have them check our site, and we'll be glad to look at their resume. We are certified with IBM, as well as our project managers are PMI certified, Scrum Masters, so all those certifications are properly there. I did mention just now that we're heavily focused in California and the West Coast via our Sacramento office, but we're just now opening up our fourth office, which will take us to that international quotient, because we're opening up an office in the Middle East in Dubai. But that's to focus in on the oil and gas push that we have. But right now, we're heavy in transit. We're heavy in a number of other asset-intensive industries. And those who know us well know that we most of the references and the qualification type projects that we talk about on a regular basis happen to be in the transit industry. Also, just to highlight two of those reference category type of clients, California high-speed rail. We've been working with them for, it's actually now past 5 years. and it's going to be continuing because as we keep growing our team, we're putting more and more people into the HSR project. Chicago Metro, same story. As much as we're supporting California High-Speed Rail, we also have a heavy presence in Chicago Metro, the Port Authority in New York, New Jersey, as well as WMATA in DC. Again, our focus from a Maximo standpoint is on all the key areas of Maximo, and we pride ourselves in being able to support people throughout your organization, everything from the asset manager and the owner of the assets, all the way through to IT and program managers, inventory managers, and asset planners. We do say that we cover the full asset lifecycle, in that we now have a integrated AIP offering with our partner Arcadis Gen, that offering being called Enterprise Decision Analytics. Perfect if you're putting together a TAM plan or any type of forward-looking asset management plan that you want to be able to do what-if modeling, what-if type of optimization of that data. You heard Mike Jordan talk a lot about the needs for good, sound data. Totally agree with him. But taking that data to the next level and being able to optimize it against your funding capabilities, your actual capital budgets, where you see your workforce going over the next couple of years, factoring in all those various variables into an optimization model allows for a true asset investment plan. We also have a mobile solution that we're now working with called OPCO. Don't ask me about the name. It's OPQO, OPCO. And it is a commercial off-the-shelf solution that installs on your device and Maximo within minutes. It is a type of solution that has the majority of its content directly into your Maximo database, so it's light on the device. Therefore, just about any device, iOS or Android, could support the solution. Great with inspections, checklists, work order management, asset management, being able to identify things through GIS spatial capabilities, documents, photos, any type of attachments can be utilized, everything you would expect in a mobile solution. Shameless plug, we are doing another presentation next Wednesday, September 23rd in our Straight Talk series, partnering with Sharptree. It is on asset data collection. So if you do have an interest in asset data collection, please check us on LinkedIn, our website, and you'll be able to grab the registration link and you can join us for that session next week. Again, we are heavily supporting our communities, our user communities, Maximo communities. PackMug, we've been supporting for a number of years. Glad and proud to be doing so. Transportation Mug is the other key user group that we support, along with the Maximo Vehicle Manufacturing Mug, and also work with Scott and Prometheus on the West Mountain user group. So happy to be doing so, and we can continue to do so. And I echo those comments. Really looking forward to seeing everybody face to face. We had that ability with the Transportation Mug meeting, the summer meeting in August at Maximo World, to actually have some people in the room, and it makes a big difference when you're trying to have these, virtual open panels are a little bit difficult, but doing it face to face really does work. So I echo that comment that the group has shared. Again, this is our information for contact. You can get us at zprosolutions.com. Again, for everything West Coast, we're based in Sacramento, and happy to talk to anybody. If you have any additional questions about ZPro, just feel free to reach out at any time.
Thanks, Bob. Yep, and thanks on having ZPro as one of our sponsors as well. All right, so rounding out the agenda today, we have our last panel discussion group led by Mr. Michael Nutt, and it is focused around mobile and Maximo inspections. So with that, Michael, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Scott. So
No presentation involved with this, very similar to Marianne. We may have a couple of poll questions coming up, but again, this is intended to be an interactive session. I may have a few additional questions to pose to the group or some stories to provide, but really wanted to discuss mobile inspections, the mobility side of it, the inspection side of it, but really keeping in theme with the data side of thing. Having access to data out in the field is critical for certain industries. Having that real-time information. A lot of organizations that aren't using mobile, as Brian mentioned, Smart hasn't jumped into that fray just yet. I imagine they will see a dramatic increase in productivity and data quality once that occurs. We tend to see that as an adjunct to implementing mobile, and specifically around inspections. So there's some added capabilities with work centers with 761 that was introduced by Maximo. Those can be utilized out in the field if you've got a good Wi-Fi connection or cellular connection on devices and can connect directly to Maximo and utilize those work centers. My understanding is still not mobilely compatible yet for offline capabilities, but that is something that is on the roadmap. But I guess, Scott, if you could launch that first.
Yeah, I did launch, Michael, during your chat here on inspection capabilities. So the first one we launch is your organization using inspection capabilities within Maximo, or you're using a third-party solution integrated into Maximo. This kind of gives us a feel for where everybody's at to kind of take the discussion down a path here on the inspection side of things. And we've got third-party inspection solutions at 50%, and we got 25% using the inspection module within Maximo, and the other 25% are not conducting inspections this time.
So that's interesting from a standpoint of what type of industry that you're using. Tying that to meters, if you're using condition monitoring, generally that's involved with some type of inspection process, whether you're using that as a kind of a round inspection or if you have that configured as a work order and you've got those meters included with the job plan, it's still an inspection. So with the new capabilities that the inspection module brings within Maximo, it's creating an actual form that you can tie into additional fields, additional capabilities above and beyond the traditional condition monitoring or traditional work order. So I'd be interested to hear from those that are using the inspection module. Are you doing that at your desktop, or have you been able to utilize that inspection form out in the field? Not to put anybody on the spot.
And I have opened up everyone's mic so they can chat. You just have to unmute yourself and you can ask away.
And that's the difference of this virtual versus in person, because I could be staring at you right now.
Correct.
Mike, it still feels like you're staring at me.
Anybody want to unmute and challenge Michael on some? Ron, you're unmuted.
I know it's the last session. We're almost at the end.
I know it's almost beer 30 for a lot of folks out there. I'm going to launch the next poll then.
All right.
And the next poll is, what processes utilize mobility in your organization? So we've got asset audits, It's a good one. Inspections and rounds, routes and rounds, work management and PMs. Inventory management is a very popular one, and any others that you might use in your organization. I know inventory management, doing your cycle counts, physical wall inventories, issuing, receiving materials, that is used quite extensively by a lot of organizations out there. All right, give you a couple more minutes to round out the poll.
And that other could be work centers, service.
Yeah, could be work centers. So, and you guys feel free to come off of mute and join the chat.
So as I mentioned before, I have been with Data Splice for about 8 years, was part of the acquisition with Prometheus. So I've worked in a number of industries, helped develop a number of use cases that utilize mobility, was part of Data Splice when we first launched the inspection form capabilities, which is in a number of users' hands at this point. So happy to share some stories about that. So looks like other.
Yeah, looks like I might have closed the poll a little early because I can't believe inventory management. Nobody's using it for inventory management.
Or for work orders, just
or for work orders.
Replacing a printed work order.
Yeah, and it's surprising. I mean, some of these user groups that I've attended in the past, one of the polls that always came up with the on-site groups was, how many people, raise of hands are using mobility, and it was, a small percentage of the audience was still not using mobility. Again, in the spirit of digital transformation for your organization, mobility is key, especially in work management and getting the work done at the point of where the work is being done. I know a use case that was very popular was, let's say if you have an unplanned outage and they go out to do an emergency corrective work order, being able to search the associated spare parts with the asset, because your technician has identified what the issue is. Now I need to know, do I have the parts to fix the damn thing, right? So with a mobile device, with a lot of the options out there, you can actually search the storeroom, look at the quantity on hand, and reserve that to your work order, knowing you can get that repair done, especially if it's a critical asset that's generating revenue for you. Or it could be that it's a non-stock and you can actually do a purchase request right through your mobile device as well. So there's so many benefits with mobility out in the field.
Well, and we talked about tribal knowledge and younger employees coming into the organization. It's almost an expectation that
Yeah,
you have access to required information, that you can manage that information. You can input information into a device, into a mobile application. So,
for us at the university, we're using the work management and the work execution with the EasyMax Mobile, and we're trying to get it so that we can maybe utilize SharePoint so that they can get to drawings and such like that, and have that right on their actual iPads, which is a really good, good feature. It helps them kind of look through things, as it's going. We also have a third party. It's called MultiVista. They take pictures of our buildings as they're being built or renovations as they're being done, and they have access to that too, so they can go right to that platform and kind of take a look at it and show, what what's in the walls versus what's not in the walls, or what they think might be in the walls, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so exactly, Michael. It's what is your use case?
Mhm.
And I can almost guarantee you that there is an efficiency gain if you have that enabled on a mobile device, that you don't have to go back. You don't. I worked with a power company in Tucson, and their tree trimming crews, their inspector would have to go to this trailer out in the middle of nowhere, pick up maps for the areas that he was going to be inspecting, draw on the maps, and then take those back and have those kind of transcribed to be available for the crews that would then go out and do the actual work based on his inspection. Well, now with mobile, that being all automated, you've got maps on your device, you can track the progress, you can actually see the route, you can optimize the routes. That information gets transferred directly in real time to the tree trimming crews. I mean, they could literally be following right behind the inspector instead of, the next week. And then once the work was done, they had probably a 2 to 3 month window between when that information was complete